On the 16th of April 1994, the Hellenic Parliament in Athens passed a law, 4 articles long, Law number 2215. It took effect on the 11th of May. The articles transferred the private estates of a specific family to the Greek state, without compensation. They stripped that family of Greek citizenship, and they required that if the members of this family ever wished to become Greek again, they had to do 3 things: renounce all claims to the throne, accept the republic, and adopt a surname. The former king of the Hellenes, Constantine II, 53 years old that spring, living in a 13-bedroom house in Hampstead Gardens suburb north of London, read the requirement and gave his answer. He said his family came from Denmark. He said the Danish royal family had no surname. He said, asked why he would not simply call himself Glücksburg, that he might as well call himself Mr. Kensington, he wouldn't sign. His wife, Anne-Marie, the sister of the Queen of Denmark, did not sign. His 3 sons, his 2 daughters, all born between 1965 and 1986, did not sign. For the next 3 decades, the family travelled the world on Danish diplomatic passports issued to a man named Constantino de Gracia. They had no other country. On the 20th of December 2024, 30 years, 8 months and 4 days after Law 2215 took effect, the Greek Minister of the Interior signed an administrative act. 10 members of the same family, 5 of Constantine's children and 5 of his grandchildren, were granted Greek citizenship under the same law that had removed it. The mechanism was Article 6, Paragraph 6. The conditions were the 3 the original law had set, and the surname they adopted, the one that now appears on their Greek identity documents, was not their own. It was a name borrowed from a cousin who had died 5 months earlier, de Gresse. This is the story of how a Danish teenager was invited to rule Greece in 1863, how his great-great-grandchildren came to sign a document in Athens affirming that the country he founded no longer belongs to thee, and what the Greek state asked for in return. The story begins with a vote. In October of 1862, the Greeks removed their king. Otto of Bavaria had been installed 30 years earlier by the great powers at the age of 17. A revolt beginning in Vonitsa on the 18th of October reached Athens on the 22nd. A provisional government declared him deposed the following day while he was touring the Peloponnese. He left Greece on a British warship. He took the crown jewels with him. He died in Bamberg 5 years later without ever returning. The Greeks wanted Queen Victoria's second son. In a plebiscite held in November 1862, the first vote on a head of state in Greek history, more than 95% of roughly 240,000 ballots went to Prince Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh. 93 votes went for a republic. 1 vote went for Otto. 6 votes, lost in a sea of 240,000, went for a Danish prince named Wilhelm. The London Conference of 1832 had barred members of the 3 protecting power dynasties from the Greek throne. Alfred had to decline. A French candidate was rejected. An Austrian was rejected. Several Germans were rejected. 8 months of diplomacy later, the Greek National Assembly met and elected, by acclamation on the 30th of March 1863, the 17-year-old second son of the future Christian, the 9th of Denmark. His sister was the future Queen Alexandra of the United Kingdom. His other sister was the future Empress of Russia. He took the regnal name George I and the title King of the Hellenes rather than King of Greece, leaving grammatical room for a Greek state that might grow. The Treaty of London of the 13th of July 1863 guaranteed his succession. The Treaty of London of the 29th of March 1864 transferred the Ionian Islands from British protection to Greek sovereignty. The new king landed at Piraeus on the 30th of October 1863. He was still 17 years old. He would reign for 50 years. He would be shot dead by a drifter in Thessaloniki 2 weeks before his Golden Jubilee. He took for his motto a phrase about the love of his people. In private, he wrote to his Danish uncle, Prince Julius, that he would not allow any interference with the conduct of his government. 4 years after his arrival, on the 27th of October, 1867, in the chapel of the Winter Palace at St. Petersburg, he married Grand Duchess Olga Konstantinovna of Russia. She was 16 years old. She was a granddaughter of Nicholas I and a first cousin of Alexander III. The marriage wired the new Greek dynasty into every major royal house in Europe. The couple had 8 children. The eldest, Constantine, born in 1868, would be the next king. The second, Prince George, would govern Crete as High Commissioner. The third, Princess Alexandra, would marry a Russian Grand Duke and die in childbirth at 21. Prince Nicholas, born 1872, would father the future Princess Marina, Duchess of Kent. Prince Andrew, born 1882, would father a boy named Philip, who would one day marry the Queen of England. Prince Christopher, born 1888, would be the last. Under George I, the country nearly doubled. Thessaly and part of Epirus were annexed in 1881. Crete declared union in 1908. The First Balkan War of 1912 to 1913 delivered most of Macedonia. Thessaloniki itself fell to Greek troops under Crown Prince Constantine on the 9th of November 1912, hours before a Bulgarian division reached the city. It was in that same city, 4 months later, that the dynasty's first Greek monarch was murdered. The afternoon of the 18th of March 1913 was warm for late winter in Thessaloniki. King George I, who had reigned for very nearly 50 years, was in his 68th year. 2 weeks remained until the Jubilee celebrations planned in Athens. He was walking, as he did most afternoons when in the liberated city, with a single aide. No guards, no motorcade. The route took him down Vasilissis Olga Street past the White Tower toward the corner of Agios Triadas. At roughly 5:15 in the afternoon, a man stepped out from a doorway and shot him in the back with a revolver. The bullet passed through the heart. The king fell forward. The aide, a lieutenant named Frangoudis, caught the assassin by the arm before he could fire again. A carriage was summoned. The king was driven to the Papafeo hospital. He was pronounced dead on arrival. The assassin was 43 years old. His name was Alexandros Shainas. Sources describe him variously as an anarchist, a tubercular vagrant, and a man who had been refused arms by the king at a previous encounter. Greek authorities preferred the first description. The Ottoman and Bulgarian governments, mindful of the Balkan War still being fought over Thessaloniki, preferred the second. Shainas was interrogated for 6 weeks at the gendarmerie on Vasilissis Sophia Street. On the 6th of May 1913, he fell from a window on the 3rd floor of the magistrate's office, a drop of approximately 9 metres, and died on the pavement below. The death was ruled suicide. No investigation followed. His severed ear and one of his hands were later displayed at the Athens Criminology Museum. The public record on who sent Alexandros Shainas, if anyone did, closes at that window. Constantine I, 44 years old, trained at the Prussian War Academy in Berlin. Married since 1889 to Princess Sophia of Prussia, the sister of Kaiser Wilhelm II, acceded to the throne on the day his father was shot. He was already a national hero from the Balkan Wars. He was also the most Germanophile head of state in the Entente's near abroad. When the First World War began 16 months later, his preference for neutrality collided directly with the interventionist ambitions of his prime minister. That prime minister was Eleftherios Venizelos, The rupture between the two men is known in Greek as the ethnikos dikasmos, the national schism. It still organises Greek politics more than a century later. Venizelos resigned in March 1915. He won the election in June. He resigned again in October over the Allied landing at Thessaloniki. On the 30th of August 1916, a group of Venizelist officers launched a separate coup in Thessaloniki and declared a provisional government of national defense. The country now had two governments, two armies, two foreign policies. On the 1st of December 1916, French and British Marines landed in Athens to demand surrender of Greek war material. They clashed with royalist reservists commanded by a colonel named Ioannis Metaxas. The Archbishop of Athens publicly anathematized Venizelos from the cathedral pulpit. The Allied navy blockaded royalist Greece for 106 days. Crowds in Athens, facing starvation, chanted a slogan that translated roughly as "Bread, olives and King Constantine." On the 11th of June 1917, Constantine I left Greece. He did not formally abdicate. The Entente considered his eldest son, the 27-year-old future George II, too pro-German to serve as regent. They installed the second son instead, Prince Alexander, 23 years old, a pleasant young man with no political experience and no real power. Venizelos returned to Athens. Alexander signed what he was told to sign. The dynasty's troubles with its own people had only begun. On the 2nd of October 1920, Alexander was walking his German shepherd, a dog named Fritz, through the vineyards of the Tatoi estate outside Athens. The estate had a small menagerie. Among the animals was a pair of Barbary macaques belonging to the steward of the grounds. Fritz and one of the macaques began to fight. Alexander intervened. The second macaque, defending the first, bit him deeply in the leg. Another bite reached the torso. He was carried to the palace. Doctors cleaned the wounds. Sepsis set in within days. A specialist consulted from Paris advised amputation of the leg. The doctors at Tatoi hesitated. They did not amputate. Alexander's condition worsened through late October. He asked repeatedly for his mother, Queen Sophia, who was in exile in Switzerland. The Venizelos government refused her entry to Greece. She was still in Lugano when her son died on the 25th of October 1920. He was 27 years old. The cause of death was bacterial sepsis from a monkey bite. Winston Churchill, writing about the episode years later, offered what remains the definitive summary. He observed that it was perhaps no exaggeration to remark that 250,000 persons died of this monkey's bite. The reasoning was direct. Alexander's death triggered a November election that Venizelos lost. A plebiscite on the 5th of December 1920 returned a 99% vote in favour of restoring Constantine I. The vote was almost certainly rigged. Constantine returned to Athens aboard the Greek cruiser Georgios Averof. Within 2 years, he had launched the Anatolian campaign that ended with the Turkish recapture of Smyrna on the 9th of September 1922, the burning of the city 4 days later, and the displacement of between 1,200,000 and 1,500,000 Greeks from Asia Minor. The Asia Minor catastrophe destroyed his reign for the second and final time. A revolutionary committee led by Colonels Plastiras and Gonatas forced his abdication on the 27th of September 1922 in favour of his eldest son. Constantine I left for Sicily. He died in a hotel in Palermo on the 11th of January 1923 of a cerebral hemorrhage. He was 54 years old. His wife at his bedside reportedly said that her husband had died of a broken heart. The new king was George II, 32 years old, already divorced in all but name from his Romanian wife. He inherited a country in which the Revolutionary Committee was preparing to execute its political enemies. On the 28th of November 1922, 6 senior figures of the defeated government, 3 former prime ministers, the foreign minister, the minister of war, and the wartime commander-in-chief were convicted of high treason and shot by firing squad at Godi. Britain recalled its ambassador. The Greek Supreme Court annulled the convictions in 2010, 88 years after the executions. George II survived a royalist counter-coup in October 1923 and then left for Romania on the 19th of December, 1823. On the 25th of March 1924, the National Assembly voted 258 to 12 to abolish the monarchy. A confirmatory referendum on the 13th of April 1924 returned 758,472 votes for a republic against 325,322 for the king, roughly 70% against the dynasty. Greece would hold 7 referendums on its monarchy across the 20th century. This was the 4th. The 7th would end the matter. The Second Hellenic Republic lasted 11 years. It failed the same way the first had failed, by losing the argument with its own army. In October 1935, a former Venizelos general named Georgios Kondylis seized the government, forced the sitting prime minister out, and scheduled a plebiscite on the restoration of the monarchy for the 3rd of November. The ballots were colour-coded: blue for the king, red for the republic. Voting was not secret. The polling stations were supervised by the army. The official result, announced 3 days later, was 97.88% in favour of restoration, 1,491,992 for the king, 32,454 for the republic. The total number of ballots exceeded the registered electorate by approximately 400,000. Time magazine, reporting from Athens 2 weeks later, described the process as one in which a voter could drop a blue vote into the box and please General Kondylis, or cast a red vote for the Republic and be roughed up. George II returned to Athens on the 25th of November, 1935. Within 9 months, he had handed extraordinary powers to his new Prime Minister, Ioannis Metaxas. On the 4th of August 1936, Metaxas suspended Parliament, dissolved all political parties, and declared a dictatorship. He styled himself first worker, first peasant, national father. He announced on state radio that he had decided to hold all the power he needed to save Greece from the catastrophes which threatened her. He died of a throat abscess on the 29th of January 1941. War swallowed what he left behind. Greece rebuffed the Italian ultimatum of the 28th of October 1940 in a single word, Ohai, and was overrun by German armour from the 6th of April 1941. The king evacuated first to Crete, then Cairo, then London, heading a government in exile funded by the British Treasury. During the Axis occupation of Athens in 1941 and 1942, roughly 100,000 civilians died of starvation. A regent, Archbishop Damaskinos, administered the country from January 1945. A referendum on the 1st of September 1946, the 6th such vote, returned George II by 68.4% on a turnout of 88.6%. The Allied mission to observe the Greek elections concluded in its final report that there was no doubt in its members' minds that the party representing the government view had exercised undue influence. The king returned to a country where the woods around Tatoi had been chopped down for firewood and shallow graves held bodies the occupation had left behind. He died in the palace in Athens on the 1st of April 1947 of arteriosclerosis. He was 56 years old. His brother Paul became king the same day. Born at Tatoi in December 1901, a former Coldstream Guards cadet, he had spent nearly half his adult life in exile. In January 1938, he married Princess Frederica of Hanover in the Metropolitan Cathedral of Athens. She was a granddaughter of Kaiser Wilhelm II on her father's side and of the last Crown Prince of Hanover on her mother's. She was born at Blankenburg am Harz in April 1917. As a 14-year-old in 1933, she had been briefly enrolled in the Bund Deutscher Mädel, the girls' branch of the Hitler Youth. Her own account, written decades later, held that she was withdrawn within weeks. The Greek left never let her forget the enrollment. Paul and Frederica had 3 children. Princess Sofia, born in November 1938, who would marry the future King Juan Carlos of Spain in 1962. Prince Constantine, born on the 2nd of June 1940 at Villa Sekiko in Athens, the future Constantine II. Princess Irene, born in May 1942 in Cape Town during wartime exile, and destined to live her entire adult life in the Zarzuela Palace in Madrid, unmarried beside her elder sister. Paul reigned for 17 years. Greece joined NATO on the 18th of February 1952. The Cyprus question dominated the late 1950s. A long partnership with the Conservative Prime Minister Konstantinos Karamanlis soured in 1963. In February 1964, exploratory surgery revealed inoperable stomach cancer. Paul died at Tatoi on the 6th of March 1964. He was 62. His son had been acting as regent for weeks. Constantine II was 23 years old on the day he became king. He had been born in 1940 with the Acropolis floodlit and 101 guns firing from the summit of Mount Lycabettus. His designated godparent by Greek royal custom was the Hellenic Armed Forces. He had spent the war years in Pretoria with the family of Jan Smuts. He had attended the elite Anavrita Classical Lyceum and trained at all 3 Greek military academies. On the 7th of September 1960, in Naples Bay during the Rome Olympics, helming the Dragon-class yacht Nereus with crewmates Odysseas Eskitsoglou and Georgios Zaimis, he had won Olympic gold in sailing. It was the first Olympic gold medal won by Greece since 1912. He described it years afterward as the greatest feeling of his life, other than becoming engaged to his wife. The wife came into the picture on the 18th of September 1964, 6 months after his accession, at the Metropolitan Cathedral of Athens. She was Princess Anne-Marie of Denmark. She was 18 years old, the youngest daughter of King Frederick IX and Constantine's 3rd cousin. They shared a great-great-grandfather in the original Christian IX of Denmark, the Glücksburg Patriarch, who had sent his 2nd son to Greece a century earlier. The new king inherited a fragile centre union government, led by a 76-year-old former academic named Georgios Papandreou. The friction between the 2 men began almost immediately. A murky affair known as ASPIDA, involving alleged conspiracy by junior officers around a captain named Aristidis Bouloukos, had implicated Papandreou's son Andreas, a Harvard-trained economist who would one day be Prime Minister himself. When Papandreou demanded personal control of the Defence Ministry in order to conduct his own inquiry, Constantine refused. The 2 men met at Monrepos on Corfu on the 11th of July 1965. They broke irretrievably. On the 15th of July, Constantine accepted Papandreou's resignation. Papandreou delivered his reply on the steps of the palace. The king, he said, reigned, but the people ruled. 3 governments followed, each drawn from centre union defectors the Greek press called the apostates. Georgios Athanasiadis Novas took office on the 15th of July and lost his confidence vote. Ilias Tsyrimokos took office on the 20th of August and lost his. Stefanos Stephanopoulos scraped through on the 17th of September 1965 by a margin of 152 votes to 148. Among the Centre Union deputies who crossed the floor to save the Stephanopoulos government that day was a 47-year-old politician from Crete named Konstantinos Mitsotakis. His son, Kyriakos, born in 1968, would one day be Prime Minister of Greece and would personally decide what the state owed the Glücksburg family when it came time to bury their last king. Anti-royal crowds in Athens through 1966 chanted at Constantine and at his mother, Queen Frederica. The chant was blunt. The people did not want him. He should take his mother and go. The king's problems with elected politicians, however, were about to be interrupted by unelected ones. On the 21st of April 1967, three colonels, Georgios Papadopoulos, Stylianos Patakos, and Nikolaos Makarazos, seized power in Athens in the hours before dawn. Tanks took the Parliament building. The colonels preempted both the general election that Papandreou was expected to win on the 28th of May, and a separate coup planned by senior generals that Constantine's own entourage had quietly been preparing. Constantine refused to sign the martial law decree. He did, however, swear in the junta's civilian figurehead, a Supreme Court prosecutor named Konstantinos Kolias. In private to the American ambassador Phillips Talbot, he described the colonels as incredibly stupid, extreme right-wing bastards with control of the tanks, who were leading Greece to destruction. He would later call the 21st of April the worst day of his life. He planned his counter-coup for 8 months. It launched on the 13th of December, 1967. At 11:30 in the morning, the royal family flew from Tatoi to the northern city of Kavala, intending to march on Thessaloniki and install a loyalist rival government. The plan collapsed within hours. Junta intelligence had penetrated the operation. Senior loyalists, including a vice-admiral named Dedes, were arrested as they moved. A general named Odysseus Angelis broadcast counterorders over the military radio. Junior officers, uncertain who was in command, refused to move. By nightfall, the king's position was untenable. The royal plane took off from Kavala and flew toward Rome. It landed at Ciampino with 5 minutes of fuel remaining. Constantine II would not set foot in Greece again for nearly 15 years. Papadopoulos installed a general named Georgios Zoitakis as regent. In March 1972, Papadopoulos took the regency himself. On the 1st of June 1973, the junta formally abolished the monarchy. A plebiscite on the 29th of July 1973, the sixth in the monarchy, returned roughly 78% yes to the republic under conditions of martial law. Constantine denounced it from London as a blatant and shameless fraud. 4 months later, on the 25th of November 1973, Papadopoulos was himself overthrown by a brigadier named Dimitrios Ioannidis. The following July, Ioannidis' sponsorship of a coup in Nicosia triggered the Turkish invasion of Cyprus and the collapse of the regime. On the 24th of July 1974, Karamanlis returned from Paris aboard a French presidential aircraft. The Metapoliti Fessei, the Greek transition to democracy, had begun. The question of the monarchy was put to the Greek people for the 7th and final time on the 8th of December 1974. Constantine was not permitted to campaign inside Greece. He delivered a radio address on the 26th of November and a televised statement from London on the 6th of December. The king, he said, shouldn't be afraid of the judgment of the people when his conscience was clear that he had fulfilled his debt. The result was unambiguous. 3,245,111 voters chose the Republic. 1,445,875 chose the monarchy. 69.18% against the king. 30.82% for. Turnout was 75.6%. Only 3 prefectures, Laconia, Rhodope and Messenia, came close to monarchist majorities. Crete voted more than 90% Republican. Karamanlis, on the evening the result was announced, told the country that cancer had been removed from the body of the nation. Constantine from London publicly accepted the result. If you've stayed with this story through 2 exiles, a monkey bite, a rigged plebiscite, and a counter-coup that ran out of fuel over Rome, you already know this isn't the kind of history Greece teaches its school children in a single lesson. Subscribing helps me keep telling it the way it actually happened, without the parts that make anyone comfortable. Constantine II began his exile in Rome. He moved to Chobham in Surrey in the early 1970s. By around 1976, he had bought a 13-bedroom house in Hampstead Garden suburb in North London from a property developer named Bob Tanner for a figure reported at approximately £325,000. He sold it in 2013 for more than £6 million. Prince William, baptised at Buckingham Palace on the 4th of August, 1982, was his godson. Prince Philip, who would become the dynasty's most famous member by marriage, was his first cousin once removed. Constantine served on the International Olympic Committee from 1963 and was made an honorary member for life after the Rome gold medal. From 1994, he co-presided over the International Sailing Federation with King Harald V of Norway. And then, on the 16th of April 1994, the Greek Parliament passed Law 2215. The law was drafted by a junior minister named Evangelos Venizelos under the premiership of Andreas Papandreou, the son of Georgios Papandreou, whose dismissal in 1965 had set the crisis of Constantine's reign in motion. The law transferred Tatoi, Monrepo and the Polydendrai hunting estate to the Greek state without compensation. It stripped the family of Greek citizenship. It required any member who wished to become Greek again to renounce all claims, accept the Republic, and adopt a surname. Constantine refused. In a televised interview, he explained that he did not have a surname. His family did not have a surname. The law that Mr. Papandreou had passed said, in effect, that he considered the Glücksburgs to have been Greek only so long as they had been exercising the responsibilities of sovereigns. Asked why he would not simply adopt Glücksburg, Constantine gave the answer that defined him for the next 30 years. He said he might as well call himself Mr. Kensington. The family took Greece to Strasbourg. Application number 25701/94 was lodged with the European Court of Human Rights on the 21st of October 1994 by Constantine, by his sister Princess Irene, and by his aunt Princess Ekaterini. Queen Anne-Marie was not at the party. On the 23rd of November 2000, the Grand Chamber ruled by 15 votes to 2 that Greece had violated Article 1 of Protocol 1 of the European Convention, the right to peaceful enjoyment of property in respect of Tatoi, Monrepo and Polydendri. On the 28th of November 2002, a unanimous Grand Chamber awarded the family approximately €13.7 million in compensation, 12 million to Constantine, 900,000 to Irene, 300,000 to Ekaterini, 500,000 jointly for costs. Constantine had claimed roughly 500 million. He received 1/40th of that figure. The Greek Prime Minister at the time, Kostas Simitis, announced that Greece would pay the compensation and that the decision put a final and irreversible end to the demands of the former monarch against the Greek state. The Anna Maria Foundation, the family's Greek disaster relief charity, received the bulk of the award. Princess Irene donated her entire share. A story covered on this channel in recent months about King Farouk's grandson returning to Egypt followed a parallel shape. A royal made to prove to a state bureaucracy facts the bureaucracy itself had erased. Constantine travelled on a Danish diplomatic passport issued to a man named Constantino de Gracia. He held that passport for 3 decades. Constantine was first allowed briefly back to Greece in February 1981 for the funeral of his mother. He returned freely from the early 2000s and permanently with Anne-Marie in 2013. He settled at a villa at Porto Celli on the Peloponnese. He suffered repeated heart problems through 2022 and a bout of COVID-19. He was admitted to the Hygeia Hospital in the Athens suburb of Marosi in early January 2023. He died there on the evening of the 10th of January 2023. He was 82 years old. His death fell one day short of the 100th anniversary of his grandfather Constantine I's death in Palermo. The question of how to bury him divided the Greek cabinet. The Prime Minister was Kyriakos Mitsotakis, the son of the Centre Union defector of 1965. Mitsotakis refused a state funeral. He refused national mourning. He said in a statement issued within hours of the death that the passing was, on a human level, the formal epilogue to a chapter that had been closed and done with by the 1974 referendum. Constantine, he added, had been king only of the Kingdom of Greece, which no longer existed. The reaction from within Mitsotakis' own New Democracy Party, particularly from former Prime Minister Antonis Samaras, forced a partial climb down. The government eventually allowed an unofficial lying in state and authorised the honours accorded to a former head of state. On the 16th of January 2023, more than 5,000 mourners filed past the coffin at the St. Eleftherios Chapel in Athens. Crowds chanted the Greek word athanatos, meaning immortal, and long live the king. Archbishop Hieronymus II led the funeral at the Metropolitan Cathedral of Athens. Crown Prince Pavlos, the eldest son, delivered the eulogy. He said that his father would always live on in their thoughts and their hearts, as happens in every Greek family when it loses something precious. Burial followed at Tartoi. The congregation at the Metropolitan Cathedral that day read like a map of Europe's former throne rooms. King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia of Spain, the former king Juan Carlos and Queen Sofia, the dead king's sister, Queen Margrethe II of Denmark, Anne-Marie's sister, Crown Prince Frederick and Prince Joachim of Denmark, King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, Princess Beatrix, King Carl XVI, Gustav and Queen Sylvia of Sweden, Crown Prince Haakon and Crown Princess Mette-Marit of Norway, King Philippe and Queen Mathilde of Belgium, Grand Duke Henri of Luxembourg, Prince Albert II of Monaco, Princess Anne representing her brother King Charles III, who was weeks into his own reign, Tsar Simeon II of Bulgaria, Crown Prince Alexander of Yugoslavia, Empress Farah Pahlavi of Iran, 9 reigning or titular monarchs. Prince William, Constantine's godson, did not attend. I want to know what you think about the funeral. The Prime Minister who refused state honours was the son of a man who had helped hollow out the government that gave the 1965 crisis its momentum. Constantine had spent half a century away from Greece and had publicly accepted the result of the 1974 vote. Was the Mitsotakis decision the correct reading of a settled constitutional question, or was something owed to the family that the Prime Minister would not give? I read every comment on this channel. The children Constantine and Anne-Marie had brought into the 13-bedroom house in Hampstead and the villa at Porto Celli now carried what remained of the dynasty. Alexia, the eldest, had been born at Monrepo on Corfu on the 10th of July 1965, the last Greek royal born in reigning-era Greece, until her brother Pavlos arrived 2 years later. She trained as a primary school teacher at Froebel College in Roehampton. She taught in Suffolk, then in Barcelona. On the 9th of July 1999, at St. Sophia's Greek Orthodox Cathedral in London, she married a Spanish architect named Carlos Morales Quintana. She lives between Lanzarote and Barcelona. She has 4 children with the surname Morales Guanci de Grecia: Arietta, born 2002, Ana Maria, born 2003, Carlos, born 2005, and Amelia, born 2007. Crown Prince Pavlos was born at Tatoi Palace on the 20th of May 1967, making him the last Greek royal born in Greece before the colonel's coup sent the family into exile. He trained at Sandhurst, served as an officer with the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, and took a master's degree at Georgetown, where his roommate was the future King Felipe VI of Spain. He moved to New York to work in finance. In 2002, he co-founded an investment firm called Ortelius Capital Partners with a partner named Peter DeSorcy. Ortelius managed approximately 102.9 million United States dollars at the end of 2023. On the 1st of July, 1995, at St. Sophia's in London, he married Marie Chantal Miller, the daughter of the DFS Group co-founder Robert Warren Miller. The wedding reportedly cost her father around $8 million and seated 1,300 guests at a gala at Rotham Park. Marie Chantal, born in September 1968, founded an eponymous luxury children's wear label in 2000. Her father retains a 38% stake in DFS after LVMH bought Chuck Feeney's share for $1.63 billion United States dollars in 1996. Forbes has placed Robert Miller's net worth at approximately $2 billion. Pavlos and Marie Chantal live between London, a townhouse on East 78th Street in New York, and Porto Heli. They have 5 children. Maria Olympia, born in New York on the 25th of July 1996, a New York University graduate, model, Bulgari and Aquazura ambassador. Constantine Alexios, born on the 29th of October 1998, godson of the future King William V of the United Kingdom. Achilleus Andreas, born on the 12th of August 2000, a Parsons graduate and actor. Odysseus Kimon, born on the 17th of September 2004. Aristides Stavros, born on the 29th of June 2008. Prince Nikolaos was born in Rome on the 1st of October 1969 during the first full year of exile. He became a photographer. He is the only one of Constantine's children who has lived full-time in Greece through most of the 2010s and 2020s. He married an event planner named Tatiana Blatnik at St. Nikolaos on Spetses on the 25th of August 2010. The couple announced an amicable separation on the 19th of April 2024. On the 7th of February 2025, he married Chrissy Vardinogianni, the daughter of the Greek shipping magnate Georgos Vardinogiannis, at St. Nicholas Ragavas in the Plaka district of Athens. He has no biological children. His new wife has 2 from a previous marriage. Princess Theodora was born in London on the 9th of June 1983. Her godmothers were Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom and Queen Margrethe II of Denmark. She graduated from Brown University and became an actress, best known for playing Alison Montgomery on the American soap opera The Bold and the Beautiful. On the 28th of September 2024, at the Metropolitan Cathedral of Athens, she married an American attorney named Matthew Kumar. The wedding had been postponed twice, first by COVID in 2020 and again by her father's death in 2023. She wore the Khedive of Egypt tiara, the traditional diadem of Greek-born royal brides. Prince Philippos, the youngest, was born in London on the 26th of April 1986. His godparents included Prince Philip, his first cousin once removed, and Princess Diana. He graduated from Georgetown and joined his brother at Ortelius Capital in New York as an analyst. On the 12th of December 2020, he married Nina Fleur in a civil ceremony in St. Moritz. Nina is the only daughter of Thomas Fleur the Swiss founder of the business jet operator VistaJet, whose net worth has been estimated at close to 1.9 billion euros. Their Orthodox wedding followed at the Metropolitan Cathedral of Athens on the 23rd of October 2021. Nina founded the Kisawa Sanctuary Resort and the Bazaruto Center for Scientific Studies on Benguera Island in Mozambique. Constantine's death in January 2023 removed the obstacle that his children had long deferred to. Within a year, his sons were in back-channel discussions with the Greek government. Greek press reports in 2024 described a series of informal private dinners between Prince Nikolaos and former Interior Minister Makis Voridis at a well-known Athens restaurant called Ratka, at which the terms were negotiated. In July 2024, Prince Michel de Grèce, a cousin of Constantine who had obtained Greek citizenship in 2004 under a French surname borrowed for the purpose, died at the age of 85. His death unlocked the template, a name already tested, a procedure already accepted by the Greek state. The legal mechanism the Mitsotakis government used was not a parliamentary vote. It was not the honorary naturalization procedure under Article 10 of the Greek Citizenship Code. It was a declaratory administrative act under Article 6, Paragraph 6 of Law 2215. The same Papandreou Venizelos law of 1994 that had stripped the family of citizenship was now the instrument by which they would regain it. On the 19th of December 2024, 10 members of the family filed declarations through their attorney at the Athens Registry Office. On the 20th of December 2024, the Interior Minister Theodoros Livanios signed the administrative decision. It was published the same day as Government Gazette B/7035/2024. The statutory conditions were 3: explicit recognition of the constitutional order created by the 1974 referendum, renunciation of all claims and titles, registration under a lawful surname. The 10 recipients were Constantine's 5 children: Alexia, Pavlos, Nikolaos, Theodora, and Philippos, and all 5 of Pavlos's children. Queen Anne-Marie did not apply. She held to her late husband's position. Her family, she said, had no surname because the Danish royal family had no surname either. Marie Chantal, who already held United States and British passports, did not apply. Nina Fleur, Swiss and British, did not apply. Alexia's 4 Morales y de Gracia children who hold Spanish citizenship were not included. The surname adopted by all 10 uniformly was de Grèce, the French form rendered in Greek as de Grèce, not the Spanish de Gracia that had appeared on Constantine's Danish passport. The choice mirrored cousin Michel's 20-year-old precedent. It avoided the German-sounding Glücksburg. The family's official statement on the 23rd of December 2024 explained that the prerequisite for the reinstatement of their nationality had been to declare a surname and that they had chosen the one their late uncle, Michel de Grèce, had used, because that was the only familiar one to them, since their family had never borne a surname. They added that it was with deep emotion that, after 30 years, they held the Greek citizenship again. The law of 1994, they said, had deprived them of their citizenship, rendering them stateless, with all that this entailed in terms of individual rights and great emotional distress. The government's own tone was coolly procedural. The cabinet spokesman, Pavlos Marinakis, refused to frame the decision as a political concession. Once the law was observed and the competent authorities verified compliance, he said, the process proceeded. The law governed the acquisition of citizenship, not the person, and there was no special treatment. After 50 years since the restoration of democracy, he added, the country had a strong democracy and a protected constitution that could defend itself, with laws that applied without footnotes or exceptions. An Interior Ministry official named Athanasios Balapos on state radio was more candid. A historically pending matter, he said, was being resolved. It was a good moment because it closed an account from the past. The country could now look forward. The Prime Minister himself made no personal statement. The opposition did not let it pass. The PASOK leader, Nikos Androulakis, issued the sharpest line. The surname they had chosen, he said, proved that they wanted to maintain a myth. A PASOK deputy, Panagiotis Doudounis, argued that digress amounted to indirect non-recognition of the existing state regime. Syriza, then newly led by Socrates Famelos, called the surname problematic on the ground that the Greek legal order did not recognize titles or nobilities, and pointed out that migrants who had lived and worked in Greece for decades waited far longer for citizenship than the Glücksburg family had. The Greek Communist Party also opposed the decision. In February 2025, a professor of administrative law at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, Panagiotis Lazaratos, filed an annulment application with the Council of State, the country's supreme administrative court. He argued that dégresse constituted a covert title of nobility in violation of Article 4, Paragraph 7 of the Greek Constitution, which holds that titles of nobility or distinction are neither conferred upon nor recognized in Greek citizens. A second constitutional scholar, Nikos Alivizatos, described the name as a declaration of place of origin and a title of distinction, such as those used by royalty and aristocrats. In April 2026, a 7-member panel of the fourth section of the Council of State, chaired by Vice President Spiridoula Chrysikopoulou, rejected the challenge. The surname stood. Pavlos's 4 sons are now liable for Greek military conscription, the same conscription that is administered by the Greek Republic, whose founding referendum their grandfather publicly accepted in December 1974, and their father formally renounced all claims against in December 2024. Tatoi, the estate that George I bought with Danish money in 1872 that spans approximately 42 square kilometres on the southern slope of Mount Parnitha, where the main palace, built from 1884 onward, houses 55 listed buildings totalling 15,085 square metres, and where 5 Greek kings, 2 queens consort, Prince Andrew and the last king's sister are buried, is being restored as a public museum. A cooperation agreement signed in August 2022 between the Greek Minister of Culture, Lina Mendoni, and the Prince's Foundation placed the work under the patronage of King Charles III of the United Kingdom, whose own foundation rebuilt Dumfries House. The Greek state is paying for the project. The British King's Charity is advising the work. Public reopening is projected for 2026. The dynasty that was invited to Greece by a vote of its National Assembly in 1863 is now a family of Greek citizens watching a British king help restore their ancestors' graveyard.